Hey guys, so today is a video on minimalism again, and today is going to be a very interesting topic, and I really encourage you to have a discussion with me and with each other down below because the topic concerns a very pop culture minimalist icon, which is Marie Kondo. She, so far as I know, had only written 2 books about organization, and her very first publication was a profoundly good bestseller called Spark Joy. If you had read Marie Kondo, everything henceforth will be very clear to you, but if you haven't, I still think that it's worthwhile to watch the video because, in fact, I'm not going to go too deep into discussing what exactly it is that her philosophy is around stuff. Marie Kondo is a Japanese organizer who had made a living out of organizing spaces, apartments, workspaces, etc. for people in Japan. Japanese minimalism is something that is near and dear to my heart because Japanese minimalism is very aesthetically pleasing to me. I really enjoy the feel and the vibe of it, along with sort of other spiritual practices that kind of drip in and contribute, like Buddhism, for instance. There's a lot going on there, and it's a big and interesting topic. Now, Marie Kondo's work doesn't directly have to do with minimalism, and I'm going to say it harshly, but I think that was the intention of her work. This is not a substance book. This is a recipe book for a light and fluffy eclair. It's nothing substantial. You won't find anything substantial there. So if you are looking for literature and minimalism, you're far better to look for essays online, for journal articles, for online publications that are dedicated to that. There are many channels on YouTube that discuss minimalism. For instance, the Minimalists. There is also Matt DeVita or Matt DeVera, a channel I'll link below that I really enjoy, and many others. And I think those are probably better sources for practical minimalism. However, Marie Kondo, well, was a huge success and made a ton of money from her book. And secondly, she introduced this Marie Kondo method that has become part of popular culture at this point. And it is sort of initially drawing people into the minimalism movement. And you can dive as deeply or as shallowly into the movement and into the ideas of minimalism as you want. Marie Kondo is most definitely on the shallow side, which is not a bad thing because you cannot throw philosophy, stoicism, for instance, and other movements that are quite integral to the idea of where minimalism is coming from. You cannot do it to a general public without introducing something lighter, lighthearted perhaps. When you're learning to play an instrument, you do not start with Schubert, okay? You start somewhere simpler, which is where Marie Kondo comes in. I think it's a bit of a junk food for the masses in terms of minimalist movement, but I think it's a really easy, lighthearted, fun way to get introduced to it. And I think if that's where it stops for you, then that's okay as well. There are no profound ideas in her work, and that's okay. And it's not meant to be profound, and it's not meant to be literature because it really isn't. But I think it's a fine work of literary recipe book, basically. And I think she does a really nice job of making it very palatable and digestible for the public. Now, let's move on to why I feel like Marie Kondo can't represent minimalism, and she doesn't claim to. She's not in the minimalism movement. She's not propagating it. She has her own little niche, her own little method, and she works on that, and it's easy and it's palatable and it's sellable. So she's exactly in the place she wants to be, and she doesn't claim to be part of the minimalists. So it's totally fair game. However, many people misconstrued what she was trying to do and say, and really ran with it in terms of taking her work and making it almost a mandatory read for minimalism. Especially somehow it appeals to women. I'm not really sure why women are more prone to or more inclined to subscribe to her methodology of decluttering. And I don't think that it's not effective, but I do think that it's a bit missing the point, along with all sort of pop culture minimalism that I've spoken about before, so we won't go into that today. In terms of putting it into a tiny box with a bow on it and ignoring the larger picture and ignoring the fact that minimalism isn't about your things. It's about your approach to the world. It's about your thoughts and organizing your priorities and thoughts and starting within. And I believe that's where the minimalism movement is really rooted. But there's a lot of layers to it, and like I said, you don't have to dive deeply. You can be fairly superficial in your approach to it, and that's okay too, as long as it helps you. Because as I've said before, minimalism is approach. To get the most out of it, I do think that it's most effective to start with yourself, not with your stuff. However, starting with your stuff and getting a bit of breathing room can really open you up to feel better and feel well enough and not anxious and not repressed by your stuff, to be able to deal with your thoughts and aspirations and values, etc. So it can be very beneficial. I'm not saying that it can't be. Also, the thing that I found odd about her, Marie Kondo's method, is the fact that she is very heavily leaning on the emotionality of the decluttering process. With her descriptions, basically, the bottom line is that if you feel an emotional attachment, great. If you don't, get rid of it. It seems a bit silly to a practical person, and she does admit in her book as well that, well, there is, of course, the spark joy thing that is the title of her book, and there's also the practical side of it, and you don't have to toss everything at once if it doesn't spark joy, because, you know, some things just don't. For instance, your period panties are not going to spark joy, and that's okay. They're not supposed to. But I think the approach of really emphasizing the emotionality, the emotional connection to the stuff around you is fundamentally not exactly aligning with ideas of minimalism. Because yes, we want nice stuff that functions well, the best possible stuff we can afford, but are we supposed to find happiness in response to things? That is a difficult question. That is a yes or no answer. Of course, you're supposed to like the things you have, because why else would you have them? But what I think, what comes across to me from her book is a more profound emotional attachment that really is a little bit toxic to have to things. The whole idea of decluttering, the whole idea of minimizing and minimalism is to eradicate your dependency on things that are an excess or are not necessary, things that don't bring value to your life. And value and joy, like the spark joy that she talks about, aren't necessarily in alignment with each other, because a value comes in a variety of different facets. And the idea of emotional connection and feeling joy because you are holding this thing like a pair of pants is excessively emotional to me, meaning that I don't know if it's a wise idea to invest your time, energy, and especially like genuine emotions into a pair of pants, into things. I think it's taking it a little far, and she heavily leans on that idea. Her entire method is basically based on it. Do I think that you're supposed to like your things? Yes. Let's get that clear, and I think she's right in that. It's correct. You really shouldn't be keeping around things that you're not using and you don't even like. Of course not. That's duh. But the whole concept of feeling love and joy and gratitude towards things, I think it takes it away from the original idea of what the book was supposed to do. And I think it makes things maybe easier for some people, because some people do have these emotional connections for things in their life. And it's easier it's a sorting mechanism for Marie Kondo. But I'm not sure that what she puts across in terms of describing this emotion of feeling joy, sparking joy, feeling love for your things, I'm not sure that that's a healthy way to actually long-term satisfaction with your environment. I think you're supposed to like your things, but I'm not so sure you're supposed to feel such an emotional dependency or connection with them. So that was something that irked me a little bit. And of course, the nature of her work is quite pop culture centered. It was meant to sell. It was written in a way that wasn't going to provoke a lot of thinking. It was just meant to sell copies, and it does. So in conclusion, I'm really going to emphasize that I think that her work has a place. Even within minimalism, it has a place. I would love to see her work de-emphasize the component of having emotional connection with things, I think you're supposed to like them. But perhaps, I'm not sure if it got lost in translation to English, because obviously I didn't read it in Japanese, which was its original language of publication, I believe. Or maybe the concept wasn't portrayed exactly, or maybe in Japanese there's a word that cannot be translated accurately in English, and that could very well be. I suspect that that probably is the case, but the way that she explains it and sort of puts it across in interviews as well, I don't feel like that's the healthiest way to have a relationship with physical world around you. However, her work is very important in the way that it exposes people to the basic process of editing. For purposes of decluttering, I don't think it matters which parameters you use. You have to choose the right parameters for yourself. So Marie gives you parameters that she uses. As you can see, I'm not a huge fan of Marie Kondo, but I am grateful for the work she's done, because her publishing these books had really opened up the community to something tangible, something that everybody can use, something very easily digestible, something that does not require background and philosophy to go ahead and process. Obviously, it misses the big picture, it misses the big points to me for sure, but I think it's a nice way to be exposed, an easy way in, a very seamless, effortless way in, to be exposed to the process of editing your life, and perhaps to be initially drawn in with ideas of minimalism. So I do think that it's valuable in that way. However, I don't think that if you're interested in the topic, you can stop there, because clearly, I mean, no, you can't stop there. You need to explore more. You need to seek out information in a presented in a better way, and look at different streams and currents of the movement. Seek out experts, seek out people who are living it in a way that is meaningful to you. And obviously that is also going to be different for everybody. What is meaningful to you will not be meaningful to me, and vice versa. So I do recommend that you are skeptical in approach to these works, because they are not serious works. And it's not a great guide, I don't think, to actual process of decluttering, because that is super personalized, and cookie cutter, one move fits all is just not going to work. But it's a good intro, so try it out and perhaps it will work for you. That's what I wanted to sort of say about Marie Kondo and her works. Tell me down below if you've read Marie Kondo, or if you know about the concepts that she's describing, what you thought of her work. Did it help you personally? Did you find it restricting, constricting, or just not very practical like I did? And generally, do you feel like it's a useful addition to the movement of minimalism? I'm always curious to know what you guys think. That's it for today. See you later. Have a good day. Bye-bye.